Welcome back, my weirdlings. We have stepped into quarter 2 of Raven's Lorecast, the season of thresholds. If quarter 1 was about origins, about where we come from, quarter 2 is about crossing. Crossing out of what no longer fits, crossing toward what is becoming, crossing the quiet line between survival and alignment. You don't have to be perfect to cross. You only have to be willing. So wherever you're listening from, I'm glad you're here. Because this quarter, we are not chasing perfection. We are practicing becoming. All right, weird ones. Wit, wisdom, witchcraft. Let's begin. Weird ones, come closer. Not to the fire, to the moment. Take a breath with me. In and out. Good. Tonight we return to one of the oldest truths in the craft. Witchcraft begins with attention, and attention begins with breath. This is the second episode in our long arc series, Witches' Tools, the foundational implements of seeing, shaping, and becoming. Not because you need objects to be a witch. You don't. Magic has never required money, aesthetic, or permission. But tools matter because tools teach. They train the body. They focus the mind. They give shape to intention. They help us practice the art of being deliberate. And tonight's tool is one of the oldest, simplest, and most misunderstood. The censer. The vessel of smoke. The keeper of ember. The tool that turns breath into ritual. The censer is not about making your space smell pretty. It is not about vibes. It is not about spiritual performance. It's a tool of 3 things. Breath, because smoke rides air, and air rides your lungs. Boundary, because smoke marks a threshold. This is inside the circle. This is outside. Blessing, because scent is memory, and memory is power. Tonight, we are going to talk about the censer like grown witches. Historically literate, ethically grounded, emotionally intelligent. No superstition, no fear-mongering. No, if you don't do this perfectly, you're doomed. And also, no flattening it into a cute little hobby. Because smoke is ancient. Smoke is prayer. Smoke is chemistry. Smoke is ritual technology older than the empires that tried to outlaw it. So wherever you are right now, kitchen, bedroom, car, shower, break room, battlefield of your own life, I want you to imagine something with me. Not a fancy altar, not a perfect aesthetic, just this. A single ember, a single breath, a single moment where you choose to be here on purpose. Because the censer is not a tool of control. It is a tool of presence. And presence is how we survive the noise. So if you've been scattered, if you've been overwhelmed, if your mind has been sprinting ahead of your body, this episode is a hand on your spine, a quiet reset, a return. And if you've been afraid of fire, afraid of getting it wrong, afraid of the responsibility that comes with power. Good. That means you're sane. That means you're ethical. That means you're ready to learn. Tonight, we'll cover what a censer actually is, where it comes from historically, how different cultures used smoke as sacred technology, how to choose one safely, what to burn, what not to burn, and how to use smoke in a way that is grounded, respectful, and real. And then we'll take it into the body, because this is Raven's Lorecast. We don't just collect facts, we become the lesson. So take one more breath with me, in and out. Let the ember glow. Let the circle open. Let the tool speak. Welcome to Breath of Fire. Let's begin. Let's start with the cleanest definition. A censer is a heat-safe vessel used to burn incense, resin, herbs, wood, or prepared blends, so that smoke can rise with intention. That's it. Not a weapon, not a guarantee, not a shortcut, a vessel. But what makes it magical is not the object. It's what the object teaches you to do. Because smoke is one of the oldest ritual technologies on Earth. Humans learned very early that fire changes things. It cooks food, hardens clay, keeps predators away, warms the body. But smoke does something else. Smoke moves. Smoke travels. Smoke enters the air, the lungs, the fabric of a room. Smoke marks a moment as different. And the moment you realize that, you realize the censer isn't decoration. It's a tool of transition. It takes you from ordinary time into ritual time. Number 1, the censer as breath. Let's talk about the first pillar, breath. In many traditions, breath is spirit. Not metaphorically, practically. Breath is life. Breath is the body's first spell. It's how you regulate your nervous system. It's how you steady your hands. How you return to yourself when the world is too much. And the censer is a breath tool because it forces you to slow down. You can't rush smoke. You can't control smoke. You can only guide it. That's witchcraft in a sentence. The act of lighting incense is a practice of attention. You choose what to burn. You choose how much. You choose where it goes. You choose when it ends. It's not mindless. It's not automatic. It's intentional. And intention is not a wish. Intention is a decision you keep making. So when we use the censer as breath, we're doing two things at once. We are working with air and we are working with ourselves. Because scent hits the brain fast, faster than language. It goes straight into memory and emotion. That means incense can become a somatic anchor. This scent means I'm safe. This scent means I'm focusing. This scent means I'm entering ritual. This scent means I'm releasing the day. That's not superstition. That's your brain doing what brains do. learning through repetition. Witchcraft is, in so many ways, the art of creating healthy repetition. Now, number 2, the censer as boundary. The second pillar is boundary. This is where people get dramatic. They want smoke to be a force field. They want it to be an exorcism. They want it to banish everything bad, like the world is a haunted house episode. But boundary work is not about paranoia. It's about sovereignty. A boundary is simply the statement, this is mine, this is not, this is allowed, this is not. Smoke is one of the oldest ways humans have marked boundaries between inside and outside, between sacred and ordinary, between grief and moving forward, between illness and health, between death and life, between the before and the after. In many cultures, smoke is used in cleansing rites, not because smoke is magical by default, but because smoke changes the sensory environment. It signals a new state has begun, and that is a boundary. Now, here's where I get very firm. Boundary work is not only metaphysical, it is also locking your door, turning off your phone, saying no, leaving the room, drinking water, taking your medication, going to therapy, reporting abuse, resting, refusing to be guilted into self-abandonment. If your incense is cleansing your space while you're still letting someone harm you, that's not witchcraft. That's coping. And coping is understandable, but witches deserve better than coping. We deserve sovereignty. So we use smoke to support boundary, not replace it. Now, third, the censer as blessing. The third pillar is blessing. Blessing is not good vibes only. Blessing is not denial. Blessing is the act of saying, may what is here be held with care. Blessing is reverence. It's gratitude. It's relationship. And the censer is a blessing tool because it invites you to treat your life like it matters. Your home, your body, your grief, your joy, your work, your relationships, all worthy of intention. Now let's ground this historically, because this is Witchcraft 101 with a graduate level backbone. Here's a brief history of smoke as sacred technology. Humans have been burning plants and resins in ritual contexts for thousands of years. And not just in one region, not just in one religion, everywhere. Because it makes sense. Resins like frankincense and myrrh were traded like gold in the ancient world, not only because they smelled good, but because they were used for offerings, purification rites, funerary practices, temple rituals, healing traditions, household devotion. Herbs were burned for practical reasons too: pest control, sanitation, scenting textiles, masking the smell of illness or death. And then those practical uses became layered with meaning. That's how humans work. We do something to survive, and then we make it sacred, because survival is sacred. And here's the key point. Smoke is a bridge. It rises. It moves between states. It makes the invisible visible. It becomes the perfect symbol for prayer, for transition, for transformation. Now, before we go further, we need to talk about ethics. Let's get into safety and ethics because fire is not aesthetic. If you take nothing else from this episode, take this. The censer is a fire tool, and fire demands respect. So here's your grounded, non-negotiable list. Always burn incense in a heat-safe vessel. Never leave it unattended. Keep it away from curtains, paper, pets, children, loose sleeves, hair. Ventilate your space. If you have asthma, migraines, sensory sensitivity, or respiratory issues, use less or don't use smoke at all. If someone in your home can't tolerate smoke, you do not override their body for your ritual. Consent applies to air. And my weird ones, this matters too. If you have pets, especially birds, cats, or small animals, be extra careful. Their lungs are not built for smoke the way ours are. A witch who loves animals does not cleanse the house by harming the house. There are alternatives. Salt water in a bowl, sound cleansing, a simmer pot without smoke, a candle, breath work alone, opening a window and speaking your intention out loud. The tool serves you. You do not serve the tool. Now, let's discuss types of censers and what they're actually for. Let's demystify the hardware. A censer can be a simple ceramic bowl with sand, a brass burner with a lid, a charcoal-safe cauldron, a hanging censer, a heat-safe plate for stick incense. You don't need the fanciest one. You need the safest one. And the best beginner setup, a heat-safe bowl plus sand. Sand is earth. It stabilizes fire. You place charcoal on the sand, resin on the charcoal. Simple. Now, incense itself comes in all forms: sticks, cones, loose herbs, resins, wood chips. Each has a different smoke level and intensity. Sticks are easy but can be heavily perfumed. Resins are ancient and powerful but require charcoal and ventilation. Loose herbs burn fast and can be harsh. So choose based on your lungs, your space, your needs, your ethics. Now, how the censer trains the witch. Here's the part I love. The censer trains you to become someone who can hold power without panicking. Because when you work with smoke, you practice restraint, patience, observation, adaptability, presence. Smoke doesn't obey you. It responds to air currents, heat, and movement, which means it teaches you the difference between control and relationship. Witchcraft is not control. Witchcraft is relationship with yourself, with your home, with the land, with your ancestors, with the unseen. And smoke becomes the visible language of that relationship. Now, you asked for it, and you earned it. Let's step into the manor for a moment. In Raven's world, the manor does not speak in words. It speaks in sensation, in pressure shifts, in doorways that feel heavier than they should, in candle flames, leaning toward a certain corner like they're listening. And when the lore keeper lights the censer, it isn't just incense. It's the moment the altar exhales. The censer becomes the mouth of the altar because smoke is the altar's breath made visible. Not to command spirits, not to perform holiness, but to declare, we are awake. We are present. We are in relationship. The smoke curls like script, like old language written in air. And the lesson is never, look what I can do. The lesson is, listen. Because the censer is not the voice of power. It is the voice of reverence. And reverence is what keeps magic from becoming ego. Now, back to our world, where the censer is still a sacred tool, even without a moving manner. Because the real truth is, your home is an altar when you treat it like one. Your body is an altar when you stop abandoning it. Your breath is an altar when you return to it on purpose. And that's why the censer belongs in witches' tools. Not because you need smoke to be a witch, but because smoke teaches you something ancient. Power is not loud. Power is deliberate. Power is practiced. And my weird ones, that's what we're doing here. We are practicing becoming. Oh, my bright ones, if the censer is the tool of breath of fire, then tonight's sky is the lesson plan. Because May 17th, 2026, isn't giving us loud, dramatic celestial theater. It's giving us something older, something quieter, something that only reveals itself to people willing to wake up before the world does. This is a pre-dawn sky, a threshold sky, a sky that whispers, if you want to hear the truth, come closer. And that, my loves, is exactly what smoke does. Smoke doesn't scream. Smoke curls. Smoke lingers. Smoke invites you to slow down until you can finally feel what you've been ignoring. So let's walk through the sky tonight the way we walk through the censer. Breath, boundary, blessing. The moon tonight is in a waning crescent phase, only about 18% illuminated, which means this is not a big bright moon kind of night. This is a thin slice moon, a blade moon, a last lantern moon. This is the phase where the moon is doing what the censer does, clearing the air. The waning crescent is the moon of release, rest, thinning, quiet truth, endings that aren't tragedies, just completion. The soft dismantling of what no longer belongs. It's the moon that says, you don't have to carry this into the next cycle. And since the new moon is tomorrow, May 18th, this waning crescent becomes a sacred in-between. Not the beginning, not the climax, the hush. The last exhale before the reset. This is breath magic. This is the moon teaching you how to let go without drama, how to release without punishment, how to cleanse without turning your life into a war zone. Because not everything that leaves you is an enemy. Sometimes it's just done. And you're allowed to be done too. Tomorrow night, the moon disappears into the new moon. And that matters for this tool episode because the new moon is the ultimate ritual truth. Not everything sacred is visible. The new moon is not empty. It's seed dark. It's womb dark. It's the kind of darkness where something is forming, which means tonight, this thin crescent night, is the perfect time for censer work that is cleansing, boundary setting, releasing old emotional residue, preparing the space, preparing the self. Not to banish negativity like a cartoon, but to say, I am making room, and witches listen. Making room is a holy act. Now let's talk about the thing that makes this sky feel like a private ritual for the devoted. Before sunrise, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn are visible in the east-southeastern sky. That's not subtle. That's the cosmos lining up a choir. Not a planet parade the way March gave us, but still a gathering, a cluster, a convergence. And because this is a tool episode, I want you to feel what this means in your body. This is a sky that says, wake up. Not in a hustle way, in a soul way, in a sacred way. Because the pre-dawn hours have always belonged to ritual people, to farmers, to monks, to midwives, to healers, to witches, to anyone who has ever known the world is quieter before it starts demanding things from you. This is the hour where the censer belongs, because smoke in the morning air is different. It doesn't feel like vibes. It feels like a signal flare, a boundary line, a blessing spoken into the day before the day can speak over you. Let's start with the breath planets. Venus. Venus is in Gemini right now. Venus in Gemini is lightness, curiosity, conversation, flirtation. Not necessarily sexual, but alive. It's the reminder that pleasure can be intellectual, that beauty can be a thought, that joy can be a sentence that lands perfectly. Venus in Gemini says, you are allowed to want delight. And paired with the censer, this is where we remember scent is delight. Scent is memory. Scent is the body saying yes to being here. Mercury. Mercury is in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces doesn't speak in spreadsheets. It speaks in dreams, symbolism, emotion, intuition, the feeling you can't fully explain. And this matters because incense is not logical. Incense is sensory. It bypasses the rational gatekeeper and goes straight to the deep brain. So tonight's Mercury supports the idea that smoke is a language, not a language of control, a language of meaning, a language of remembering. And my weird ones, this is important. Mercury in Pisces can also mean fog, confusion, miscommunication, spiritual bypassing. So the censer becomes a tool not just for mysticism, but for clarity, for choosing one thing to focus on, for saying, I am here. That's breath. Next, let's talk about the boundary with Mars and Saturn. Now we move into the boundary planets. Mars in Aries. Mars is in Aries and strong. Mars in Aries is raw fire. It is courage, action, instinct, drive, heat, sovereignty. Mars in Aries does not beg. Mars in Aries does not shrink. Mars in Aries says no and means it. Mars in Aries says yes and follows through. This is embodied truth, and it pairs beautifully with the censer because smoke is one of the oldest ways humans have marked, this is my space. This is my threshold. This is where I stop giving access. Not in fear, in sovereignty. A boundary is not cruelty. Let me say that again with enough firmness that everyone listening completely understands. A boundary is not cruelty. A boundary is care. A boundary is you protecting what is sacred inside you. Saturn in Aries. Saturn is also in Aries, early degrees, which means Saturn is doing something very specific. It's building a container for the fire. Saturn in Aries is discipline around instinct. It's the difference between rage and righteous action, desire and consent, impulse and initiation, heat and harm. Saturn says, just because you can burn it down doesn't mean you should. And witches, listen, that's the difference between power and destruction. So this pre-dawn sky gives you Mars and Saturn together, visible, present, undeniable, fire with boundaries, instinct with ethics, heat with a container, which is exactly what the censer teaches. You do not light fire and abandon it. You do not summon smoke and pretend it has no consequences. You hold it. You witness it. You end it intentionally. That is the craft. Now let's talk about the great, bright blessing of this sky. Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is in Cancer, and it remains the brightest planet in the night sky. Cancer is the sign of home, shelter, belonging, emotional truth, protection, lineage, care. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. It's strong there. It's generous there. It's Jupiter saying, your healing is allowed to be tender. Not everything has to be earned through suffering. Not everything has to be a battle. You are allowed to be protected. You are allowed to be held. You are allowed to build a life that feels like a safe place to land. And this is where the censer becomes more than cleansing. It becomes blessing. Because blessing isn't good vibes. Blessing is the act of saying, may this home be held. May this body be safe. May this spirit be fed. Jupiter in Cancer is the sky reminding you that magic is not only about transformation. It's also about tenderness. It's also about refuge. It's also about returning to yourself. And my weird ones, if you needed permission to want safety, here it is. In the early morning hours, the waning crescent moon appears near Antares, the bright red supergiant star in Scorpius. Antares is called the heart of the scorpion. It's a red star. a burning star, a star that looks like a wound and a jewel at the same time. And if we're talking about breath of fire, Antares is a perfect celestial companion because Antares is not gentle. It's beautiful, but it's intense. It's the reminder that there are some truths you cannot whisper. Some truths demand heat. Some truths demand courage. So the moon, thin and waning, passing near Antares, is like the cosmos saying, even in your ending phase, your heart is still fire. Even when you are tired, even when you are releasing, even when you are thinning down to what matters, there is still a core in you that burns, not destructively, sacredly. That's the kind of fire the censer holds, not wildfire, hearth fire, prayer fire. Let's zoom out just enough to remember the larger myth we're living inside. Uranus has recently entered Gemini. This is the era of information acceleration, truth and lies moving faster than ever, noise, data, signal distortion. So the censer becomes a tool of focus, a tool of choosing one thread, one intention, one truth. When the world becomes too loud, smoke teaches you to return to the senses. Neptune in Aries is spiritual fire. It can be visionary. It can be inspiring. It can also become delusion if it isn't grounded, which is why the censer must always be paired with ethics. Neptune says dream. Saturn says be responsible. Mars says act. Jupiter says care. That's a full spell. Pluto in Aquarius continues to transform the collective, the systems, the structure, the future, which means personal witchcraft matters because it teaches you how to remain sovereign in an era that wants you fragmented. And the censer is a tool of sovereignty because it trains attention, and attention is resistance. If you want to do a sky-aligned censer ritual tonight, here's the clean version. Step 1, light the ember. Even if you don't burn anything, light a candle. Step 2, one breath for each pillar. Hand on chest. Breath. Inhale. I return to myself. Exhale. I release what isn't mine. Boundary. Inhale. I choose what enters. Exhale. I close what drains me. Blessing. Inhale. May my home be held. Exhale. May my spirit be fed. Step 3. Look up. If you can step outside before sunrise, find one planet, just one. Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, any of them, and whisper, I see you. I remember. I am awake. That's enough. Witchcraft doesn't require grandeur. It requires sincerity. This sky is a threshold, a waning moon, a pre-dawn gathering, a red heart star, a new moon arriving tomorrow like a blank page. And the censer fits this moment because it teaches you what the sky is teaching. Smoke is breath made visible. Fire is power held responsibly. Scent is memory you can choose. Cleansing is release without punishment. Blessing is care without apology. So if you've been scattered, let this sky gather you. If you've been heavy, let this moon thin the burden. If you've been afraid of your own fire, let Saturn shape it. If you've been starving for safety, let Jupiter remind you you deserve it. And if you've forgotten how to begin again, the new moon is coming, and so are you. Weird ones, welcome to the part of the ritual where the air stops being background and becomes a tool. Because tonight we're talking about the censer, the vessel that carries smoke like a message, like a warning, like a blessing, like a door. So now we're not making a full meal tonight. Tonight we're making a drink that breathes. A ritual you can pour, a spell you can sip, a little bit of sweet heat in a glass with a foggy halo of smoke around it that says, something is happening here. And you don't need expensive ingredients. You don't need a fancy goblet. You don't need a shrine worthy of a museum. You just need a pot, a spoon, a little fruit, a little fire, and the willingness to let the air become sacred. This is the Pineapple Ember Fizz, a wild, sparkling offering that feels like the moment incense catches flame. Bright, sharp, warm, holy. Let's do it. My Nana used to say, a witch doesn't cook, a witch composes. And what we're composing tonight is not a recipe, it's a sensory rite. Because the censer is about three things. First, transformation. Smoke is matter changing state. Second, presence. The moment smoke rises, the body pays attention, even if your mind is wandering. Third, message. In every culture, in every era, smoke has been used to carry something. Prayer, grief, gratitude, protection, desire. So tonight's drink is designed to do the same. It's sweet because joy is sacred. It's spiced because fire wakes the spirit. It's bright because clarity is a blessing. And it's carbonated because the air should feel alive again. First, part one, the syrup, which is fire plus spirit, the pineapple ember concentrate. You can consider this your incense resin, but edible. In a saucepan, add 1 can crushed pineapple with juice, half a cup of orange juice, 2 teaspoons vanilla, half a teaspoon cinnamon, a pinch of clove. Seriously, just a pinch. Clove is loud. A pinch of cardamom, the mysterious cousin of cinnamon, a tiny pinch of salt. This is optional, but it makes the whole thing just deeper and richer in flavor. If you are somebody who has a severe sweet tooth, you can add 1 to 2 teaspoons of maple syrup to make it sweeter. Turn the heat to medium and let it simmer. As it warms, I want you to pay attention to what happens in the air, because the first spell of a censer is not the smoke, it's the scent. That first curl of fragrance that makes your nervous system say, oh, we're here now. Let the mixture reduce for 15 to 25 minutes, stirring occasionally until it thickens into a glossy syrup. You're looking for the texture of something that wants to cling to the spoon. Not jam, not candy, just thick enough that it feels intentional. And while it simmers, whisper, let what is scattered become centered. Let what is hidden become clear. Let the remember me. Because you are not just making syrup. You are calling your spirit back into the room. Let's move to part 2. This is where you decide to strain it or keep it wild. I like to keep it wild and call that the earth choice. Once your syrup is ready, you have 2 paths. Option A is smooth and elegant. Strain it through a fine mesh sieve. This makes it clean, bright, refined. Option B, my personal favorite, thick and ancestral. Keep the pulp, keep the texture, let it be rustic and real. Both are valid though, because witchcraft is not about perfection, it's about power. And power does not require aesthetics, it requires intention. Now for part 3, the fizz, where we bring in water and air. Now we build the drink. In a pitcher, add a half a cup of the syrup. Start with a half a cup. You can always adjust more if needed. Then fill the pitcher with sparkling water and top it with a squeeze of lime for extra brightness. Stir gently, and as you stir, say, "May sweetness return without apology. May pleasure return without shame. May I receive what I've been denying myself." Because if you've been running on fumes, emotionally, spiritually, creatively, this is your reminder. You don't have to earn softness. You're allowed to drink joy because you're alive. That's the whole point. Now, part 4. This is the censer moment, the smoke. We're going to get dramatic now. You wanted smoke, not cute smoke, not a candle vibe. You wanted a ritual breath. So here's how we do it safely. This is very important. Dry ice safety is no joke. We do not put dry ice in the drink. Not ever. Not once. Not just a little piece. Dry ice is not a garnish. It is a smoke tool. So here's the setup. Place a chunk of dry ice into a separate heat-safe bowl. Add a little water. Let the fog spill like a living thing. Set your glasses around it like an altar circle. Now your drink is surrounded by breath, like incense, like a censer, like the room itself is exhaling. And as the fog curls and creeps across the surface, say, "This is the breath of fire. This is the air made holy. This is my message to the unseen." You've just built a censer out of atmosphere. No brass, no chains, just intention and physics holding hands. Part 5. The sip. We'll call this the integration spell. Pick up your drink. Hold the glass in both hands for a moment and feel the truth of what you're doing. You are not making a fun beverage. You are practicing presence, embodiment, sacred attention, intentional breath. Take your first sip and say, "May my words be true. May my spirit be clear. May my air be protected." Then drink slowly. Let the spices warm the back of your throat like a small flame. Let the pineapple brighten your mouth like sunrise. Let the carbonation crack open your chest like you've been holding your breath for weeks. Because the censer doesn't just clear the room, it clears you. Weird ones, this is why the censer matters. Not because smoke is aesthetic, not because it looks mystical on Instagram, but because smoke teaches you something the modern world keeps trying to erase. Air is not nothing. Air is alive. Air is a carrier. Air is a boundary. Air is a blessing. And when you learn to work with air, you learn to work with the invisible forces shaping your life, which means you're ready. Before we close this circle, I want you to hear me clearly. The censer is not a decoration. It is not a prop. It is not a personality trait. It is a tool. And like every tool worth holding, it teaches a lesson the moment you take it seriously. You are responsible for what you release into the air. Not just smoke, not just scent, not just incense, but energy, words, intentions, old grief, new rage, unspoken desires, half-healed stories. The censer is not just about cleansing a room. It's about learning how to cleanse yourself without burning down your own nervous system. It's about learning the difference between purification and punishment, devotion and desperation, protection and paranoia, ritual and performance. And if you remember nothing else from tonight, remember this: smoke doesn't do the work. Smoke is the signal. The work is you. The choice to show up, the choice to be intentional, the choice to be careful, the choice to be kind, the choice to stop treating your own spirit like something that only deserves attention when it's already on fire. So here's your vow, your closing spell, your tool blessing. Take a breath in, slow, deep, like you're making space in your ribs for something ancient. And say, I do not burn to prove I am powerful. I do not suffer to be worthy. I do not purify myself into emptiness. I choose clarity. I choose presence. I choose the sacred, practiced gently. Because that is what the censer teaches. Power doesn't have to be violent. Power can be deliberate. And deliberate power is the kind that lasts. Now, before we leave, some real world magic. If you work with smoke, do it with respect. Crack a window, let the old energy leave. Keep water nearby. Fire is not a suggestion. If your lungs don't love smoke, don't force it. You are not failing the craft. If you have pets, especially birds or small animals, be mindful. If someone in your space says no, then the answer is no. Consent applies to air too. Witchcraft is not about aesthetic suffering. It's about sovereignty. And in Raven's world, the manor doesn't respond to smoke like it's a trick. It responds like it recognizes language, because the censer is the altar's mouth. The moment the first ribbon rises, the house remembers. Someone is speaking with intention. Someone is shaping the air, and the air listens. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally showed up with a steady hand and a steady heart. That's the difference between a witch and a wanderer. A witch learns the rules. A witch learns how to hold fire without letting it become hunger. So tonight, weird ones, may your smoke carry what you mean and not what you fear. May your breath return to you. May your home feel like yours again. May your rituals become places of refuge, not pressure. And may you remember, you do not need to be louder to be more magical. You need to be clearer. Now, let the smoke thin. Let the air settle. Let your body unclench. You did good work tonight. And I'll see you next week. If tonight stirred something in you, if a story caught, if a ritual settled into your bones, if a truth followed you into the quiet, that's the work. Quarter 2 is about thresholds, and thresholds aren't destinations, they're decisions. If you'd like to keep walking with me between episodes, you can find Raven's Lorecast on Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok. You can find me on Instagram at ravens_lore_cast. These are where the conversation continues, the visuals unfold, and the circle stays open. If you're called to go even deeper, the Patreon door is there when you're ready. No pressure, no chasing. Just another threshold you can step through when it feels true. Until next time, wit, wisdom, witchcraft. See you at the doorway, my weirdlings.